There was a time when the roar of the Colosseum shook the streets of Rome, when men in battered armor and chipped helmets stood beneath the sun, waiting for a fate decided by sand and steel. But before the glory, before the cheering crowds, before the legends were carved into marble, there was only the training, the bruises, the wooden swords, the endless drills inside a dusty gladiator school where sandals pinched your feet and the air reeked of sweat and fear. Tonight, you won't just hear about it. You'll wake up there, inside a stone barracks, where survival is a lesson taught at dawn, and failure means being fed to lions before the crowd has finished breakfast. Before we begin, if you truly enjoy these stories, hitting like or subscribe helps me keep making them, and hopefully helps you keep drifting off. Let me know where you're listening from tonight. I'm always amazed by the places people tune in. Now, get comfortable, take a slow breath in, and let it out. Because once this story begins, chances are you'll be asleep before it ends. Congratulations, you've just woken up in 68 CE at a gladiator school in Rome, also known as a ludus, also known as the worst decision you ever made, which is saying something, since you once ate salted eel off a cart in summer, twice. Your head hurts, not metaphorically, literally, because yesterday a man in a metal hat hit you with a stick and called it orientation. Now you live here. You're not sure how this happened. You were supposed to copy scrolls for the city archives. It was boring, yes, but it didn't usually end with someone losing a toe. You tried to explain that to the recruiter. He shrugged, handed you a wooden sword, and said, "Better than being eaten by dogs." Then walked away, laughing. So now, here you are, standing in the sandy courtyard of the ludus, holding what might be a sword, but also might be a slightly sharpened broom handle. You're surrounded by 20 other confused men and 2 women, all of whom are sweating and trying not to make eye contact with the guy eating a raw onion in the corner. The onion guy has 1 sandal, 3 visible teeth, and the confidence of a man who's fought at least 1 goose barehanded. You instinctively step a little further away from him, just enough that your elbow brushes a barrel full of dull practice spears. You hope they're dull. You'd hate to start your gladiator career by impaling yourself while trying to be polite. Your new trainer, a man named Rufus, who looks like someone chiseled him from leftover bricks, walks past each of you. He smells like iron and disappointment. He stops in front of you. "You fight?" he asks. You open your mouth to respond, but your brain says something like, "glub," and your tongue betrays you by sticking to the roof of your mouth. He grunts, then moves on. You've made an impression. You overhear someone whisper, "fresh mate." You're not sure if they're referring to you or the unidentifiable gray slab being hauled into the kitchen. You decide not to ask. You're issued gear, tunic, sandals, and a belt that seems decorative at best. The tunic smells like it was worn by someone who died in it, possibly twice. The sandals are exactly one size too small, which Rufus insists builds character. You try to ask for a quill and parchment. They laugh. You're beginning to think this isn't a temporary internship. Then comes breakfast. Beans, just beans, served from a pot so large it probably has voting rights. You sit beside a man whose only word so far has been eel. He repeats it mid-bite, points at his tattoo of an eel, and grins. You're not sure if it's his name, his profession, or a warning, but you nod politely and avoid his bowl. The man across from you is missing 3 fingers and still eats faster than you. When you ask what happened to his hand, he says, "Practice dummy." You don't ask for clarification. The first day of training begins with light drills, which in Rome means sprinting up and down a gravel yard, carrying a shield roughly the size of a small cow. By noon, you've sweated out half your body weight and are convinced your kneecaps are trying to mutiny. By mid-afternoon, you're asked to spar with someone named Brachus, who is either a former blacksmith or a current rhino. You last 11 seconds, and 5 of those were spent falling. When you wake up, again, you're staring at the sky through what might be your own sweat and maybe some blood. A concerned pigeon lands nearby, watches you for a moment, and then struts off like it's embarrassed for you. You relate to it on a spiritual level. By evening, you've learned 3 things. Sand gets everywhere. Gladiators don't bathe alone. No one knows what's in the meat surprise stew, and asking earns you extra laps. The stew, incidentally, tastes like despair and unwashed turnips. You chew slowly and try not to think about what you saw Rufus throw into the pot earlier. Was it a hoof, a sock, a frog, all 3? Your cell is 8 steps wide, 4 steps long, and smells like ambition and wet rope. You share it with the eel man, who, it turns out, snores in Latin. He also hums lullabies in Greek, badly, but it's strangely comforting. You consider running away, but the gate is locked, the walls are high, and frankly, you're too tired to climb anything that doesn't involve pillows. Besides, rumor has it that the last guy who tried to escape was turned into a cautionary tale and painted on the mess hall wall. It's not a good painting. That night, you dream of scrolls, of quills, of libraries where no one yells, "Kill" before breakfast. You wake up with a nosebleed and a vague sense that your life is now a series of increasingly violent misunderstandings. Still, something stirs, a flicker of curiosity. Maybe it's the adrenaline, maybe it's the beans, but part of you wonders, what if you're not the worst? What if, somehow, this ridiculous, dusty, sweaty place is where you become someone new, someone strong, someone brave, someone who doesn't trip on their own sandal mid-battle. Because despite the bruises, despite the stew, despite the fact that you are currently sleeping next to a man named after a fish. Something inside you hasn't given up. Maybe you're a little tougher than you thought. Maybe you don't want to die on page 3 of someone else's scroll. It's a stretch, but you've eaten eel off a cart before. You've survived worse. Tomorrow, they teach you how to block. You plan to survive that too, even if the shield weighs more than your dignity, especially if the onion guy tries to pair up again. You're still not over that accidental elbow, and as you drift off, it occurs to you, surviving here isn't just about fighting. It's about knowing the rules no one writes down, the ones you'll start learning at dawn. It's still 68 CE, and you've survived your first week in the ludus. You're not sure what's worse, the smell of the training yard at sunrise, or the realization that this is your new normal. You've stopped asking when they'll let you leave. Everyone just laughs now, even the guy who sleeps on rocks for fun. His name's Milo. He claims rocks make your dreams heavier. You don't ask what that means. You're afraid it's philosophical. By the end of your first week, you've acquired blisters in places you didn't know had skin. Your arms ache. Your back mutinies. Your thighs feel like they've been drafted into an unholy war. Rufus, your trainer, says this is good progress. You quietly suspect Rufus is not human, but a leather bag stuffed with muscle and sarcasm. One morning, a man offers you a cup of something brown and suspiciously bubbly. Toilet wine, he says, beaming. You pause. Why is it called that? He shrugs. Because that's where we hide it. You don't drink it, but you pretend to. No one trusts a man who doesn't sip secrets. The ludus is beginning to form its own strange social order. The onion guy, now universally known as Eel, has inexplicably become a kind of folk hero. Last night, he beat 3 men in a row with a mop handle and then recited bad poetry about fish. Someone stitched him a cape out of old tunics. He wears it proudly, even during stew. You've also made a few friends, or as close to friends as you can have in a place where people bleed together professionally. There's Cassia, fast, silent, and terrifying with a trident. There's Gaius, enormous, gentle, and deeply committed to talking about bean cultivation. And there's you, still figuring out how to hold your sword without hitting your own leg. Each morning begins with the same chant: discipline, endurance, honor. Then, Rufus hits someone with a stick, usually you. Discipline, he mutters as you fall into the sand. This week, they teach you the testudo formation, a tactic where everyone huddles under shields like a grumpy metal turtle. In theory, it's beautiful. In practice, it's 10 people shouting about elbow placement and one guy farting under the dome. Your group fails the drill spectacularly. Rufus sighs and tells you to reconsider your life choices. You already have, repeatedly. After drills, There's reflection time, which sounds gentle, but is really code for scrubbing blood off shields and debating the ethics of using a severed finger as a bookmark. You overhear someone say, "There used to be a sculptor." Another says, "They were a senator's body double." One swears she was a priestess until she stole a sacred goat. You begin to realize the ludus is not just a school, it's a last stop. A strange, accidental family formed of mistakes, bad luck, and one very confused goat thief. The food hasn't improved. If anything, the beans have become bolder, spicier, more self-aware. Today's stew includes a chunk that might be leather. You don't ask. You just chew. Eel teaches you how to sneak second helpings by distracting the kitchen slave with dramatic sneezing. It works 3 times until he actually sneezes blood. Now, you're under mild stew probation. Evenings are your favorite time. The training stops. The bruises settle. The fire pit is lit. Everyone pretends, just for an hour, that you're not all here to eventually die in public for other people's amusement. Someone plays a flute badly. Someone else sings a song about figs and shame. Eel tries to arm wrestle a dog. The dog wins. You share stories, fake and real. You tell them you once copied a scroll, so long it took 3 lunches and a nap. They nod solemnly. Cassia says she once fought off a tax collector using only sarcasm. Gaius claims he met a ghost in the latrines. You decide not to ask follow-up questions. One night, Rufus joins the circle. He doesn't say much, just sharpens his blade and drinks something that smells like fire and bark. Then he looks up, just once, and says, "Tomorrow's the first culling. Don't be stupid." Silence. You ask Gaius what he means. Gaius stares into the fire and mutters, "You'll see." You don't sleep much that night, but in the early hours, just before the horn, Eel leans over and offers you half a stale fig. You accept it. No words. Just a nod between 2 people who've stopped expecting good news and started valuing strange, small gifts. The next day, the culling begins, and before you can fully understand what that means, Rufus calls your name. It's time for your first real fight. It's still 68 CE, and you've barely made it through week 2 when Rufus decides it's time. The culling, your first real fight. You're shoved into the practice ring with no warning. The sand feels hotter than usual. The air smells like rust and fear. A crowd of bored nobles leans on the rail, holding figs and fanning themselves with peacock feathers. They've come for entertainment. You've come to regret every decision you've ever made. Across from you stands Brachus. Brachus smells like wet rope and crushed olives. He's built like a blacksmith, wide, heavy, and already annoyed that you exist. He cracks his knuckles. You consider fainting early, just to save time. The horn blows. You lunge forward. Then immediately forget every drill you've learned. Instead of blocking, you wave your sword around like you're chasing a fly. Instead of attacking, you backpedal so quickly you nearly trip over your own dignity. Brachus grins. The crowd does not. His first strike rattles your arm to the bone. His second knocks the air from your lungs. By the third, you're pretty sure your ancestors felt it. You last exactly 11 seconds, and 5 of those were spent falling. The nobles yawn. One throws a grape pit in your direction. Another asks if this is rehearsal. Rufus just shakes his head. When you finally hit the sand for good, you stare up at the sky. A pigeon waddles past, pauses, and looks at you like it's embarrassed on your behalf. You relate to it deeply. Brachus doesn't finish you off. This isn't to the death. It's just a demonstration. A reminder of where you belong in the food chain. Spoiler, near the bottom. You limp back to your cell. Later, half conscious, half humiliated, and fully bruised. Every step sends a new flare of pain through your body. Your ribs sing, your shoulders throb, even your toes feel insulted. That night, you lie awake, cataloging your wounds. Plum, apricot, shame, the anatomy of a bruise. And you wonder how many more colors your body can invent before it gives up entirely. Tomorrow, the medic will come with his beet paste, bone wine, and terrible bedside manner. You're not sure which hurts more, the fight or knowing you'll have to endure his remedies. It's the morning after your first real fight. You wake up convinced someone has replaced your bones with wet wood. Every breath squeaks. Every stretch feels like betrayal. Even your eyelids feel bruised. You sit up slowly, taking inventory. Your shoulder is purple. Your ribs are blue. Your pride is somewhere between green and yellow. Your shin, somehow, is striped like a melon. If pain were an artist, your body would be its masterpiece, a fresco of failure. Rufus calls this character building. You call it, please let me die. Neither changes the fact that training continues as usual. The horn still blares, the drills still drag on, and Rufus still stalks around with his stick, waiting for someone to look too alive. That's when the medic shows up. His name is Lucius. He doubles as the cook, and possibly the undertaker. You're not sure which role he's worse at. He carries a bag that rattles suspiciously when he walks. You pray it isn't bones. Lucius inspects your bruises with the detached interest of a man checking fruit at the market. Ah, he says, plum. He pokes your rib. Apricot. He squeezes your arm until you wince. Shame. You hiss through your teeth. Lucius shrugs like he's ordering lunch. For treatment, he offers beet paste, which is exactly what it sounds like. Mashed beets. He smears it across your ribs and tells you it will balance the humors. It mostly stains your tunic and attracts flies. Then he pats your shoulder, leaving a sticky red handprint that makes you look like you lost a fight with the salad. Then he hands you a cup of something thick and red. Bone wine, he declares proudly. You ask what's in it. He just says, "Don't chew." You take one sip. It tastes like despair, vinegar, and possibly shoe leather. You hand it back. Lucius shrugs again and drinks the rest himself. By evening, you're still aching, but at least you can move your arms enough to eat stew, which is fortunate because someone stole your stylus and used it to stab a fish. You had been trying to keep a journal, something noble, something lasting. Now the only record of your pain swims belly up in the kitchen bucket. You stare at it during dinner. The fish stares back. You both look equally disappointed. In the cells, you hum one of Eel's terrible lullabies to yourself, not because you like it, but because it drowns out the groans of everyone else cataloging their bruises. The cell block sounds like a choir of wounded donkeys, and somewhere in that chorus of pain, you notice something unexpected. Laughter. Someone cracks a joke about Rufus's eyebrows, how they look like two squirrels fighting. Someone else admits to crying when they dropped a shield on their own foot. Cassia mutters that she once fainted in the baths because she saw her own reflection. Everyone chuckles, softly, through the pain. And you realize, even in misery, bonds are forming. Strange, fragile bonds. It's a dangerous kind of comfort, because friends here can disappear tomorrow, but still, in that smoky, groaning cell, it feels like something real, something worth holding on to. Tomorrow, those bonds will be tested, not in the arena, not with swords, but over stolen olives, awkward confessions, and the kind of accidents that make strangers into something closer to friends. It's still 68 CE, and the bruises haven't faded when you stumble into something unexpected. A friendship, or at least the Gladiator version of one. It begins with olives. You find two rolling across the sand after lunch, dropped from someone's ration. You pick them up, wipe them on your tunic, and pocket them like treasure. That night in the cell, your roommate Eel eyes you suspiciously. He squints, nostrils flaring like a wolf catching a scent. You hand him one of the olives. He grins wide, teeth glinting in the torchlight. He eats it whole, pit and all. You don't say the word friend, but the olive says it for you. The next day, you're waiting in the latrines when Cassia, the terrifying trident fighter, sits down beside you. She says nothing at first, just stares at the wall, as if considering carving her name into it. Then suddenly, she whispers about her dog, how she misses its bark, its stupid wagging tail. Her voice breaks for half a second, and in that half second, she stops being just a weapon. She becomes human. Later, during drills, Gaius, the bean philosopher, drops his shield. It lands squarely on your foot. You yelp loud enough that Rufus stops and glares. For one terrifying moment, you're sure he's going to add another bruise to your collection. But then Gaius blurts out, "Sorry, I was thinking about lentils." You laugh despite yourself. Rufus smacks you both with a stick anyway. Sentimentality is weakness, he growls. But you notice the corner of his mouth twitch, almost like he wanted to laugh too. The longer you stay in the ludus, the more you realize everyone carries ghosts. One man still writes poems on scraps of cloth, hiding them under his mattress. Another keeps a pebble he swears is a piece of his home. Cassia hums lullabies in a language you don't recognize. Eel tells endless stories about fish that may or may not be metaphors. Even Rufus, in his rare quiet moments, stares into the fire too long, as though remembering something he'll never say aloud. But bonds here are tricky. Friends can quickly turn into enemies, and enemies are often the only ones standing between you and survival. You learn this during sparring, when Gaius, gentle, giant Gaius, swings too hard and nearly dislocates your shoulder. Not because he hates you, not because he wants you dead, but because distraction lives everywhere in the ludus. One wrong thought, one flash of memory, and suddenly you're bleeding. And yet, in the evenings, those distractions fade. You sit by the fire, you share olives, stolen or gifted. Cassia admits she once fought off a tax collector using only sarcasm. Eel boasts about arm wrestling a goose. Gaius claims he saw a ghost in the latrines. A Roman senator, pants round his ankles, weeping for eternity. You all laugh until your ribs ache more than your bruises. Still, in the back of your mind, you know bonds are fragile here. That kindness might not last through the next culling, but for a few stolen hours, you feel like part of something. Not a scribe lost in a nightmare, not meat waiting for the sand, but a member of a bizarre, battered, ridiculous family. The next morning, Rufus orders everyone to march, not to the arena, not to the training yard, but to the public baths, steam, marble, and the uncomfortable reality of scrubbing someone else's back while they tell you how to hold a spear. It's still 68 CE, and Rufus wakes you at dawn with a kick. Today is the exhibition, the parade of meat. They hand you armor that looks like it was hammered together from tin pots and bad intentions. The helmet wobbles when you nod. The chest plate rattles when you breathe. The sandals pinch worse than usual. Even the belt seems confused about its purpose. You look less like a warrior and more like someone who lost a fight with the kitchen. Eel struts past, draped in his makeshift cape of stitched tunics, grinning as though he owns the place. Cassia adjusts her trident grip, already scowling at the thought of applause. Gaius pats your shoulder with his massive bean-farming hand, almost knocking you over. "Smile," he says. It makes the figs bounce off easier. You're not sure if he's joking. The gates creak open. Blinding sunlight spills across the sand. You shuffle forward, armor clanking like an embarrassed donkey dragging tin cans. The crowd roars, not in awe, not in respect, but in amusement. A child in the front row launches a fig. It hits your helmet with a wet smack and slides down your faceplate. The nobles howl with laughter. You wave awkwardly, trying to look fierce. You are not. You look like a man waving for help at a family picnic. Cassia manages a proper glare, eyes flashing like steel. Eel flexes dramatically, blows kisses, and nearly trips over his cape. The crowd adores him. Gaius bows so deeply, he nearly topples into the sand. The crowd claps as if they've seen a comedy act. And then it's you again. You shuffle, your tin chest plate squealing with each step. A noble points and calls out, "Half a gladiator, half a bucket." Another shouts, "Shake him, maybe coins will fall out." You consider correcting them, but you're not sure they're wrong. By the end of the march, your arms ache from holding the shield. Your legs burn from the slow shuffle. Your jaw hurts from pretending you're brave, and your ears ring from laughter that isn't for you, but at you. Still, you're standing, and in the ludus, sometimes standing is the only victory. Back inside, Rufus eyes the group. "You survived the parade," he says flatly. "Don't get used to it." His gaze lingers on you a moment longer, as though he already knows the crowd has picked its favorite joke. That night, you lie in your cell staring at the ceiling. You replay the laughter, the figures, the jeers, the absurdity of being paraded like livestock. And yet, buried in the noise, you think you heard something else. Not just mockery, but hunger, expectation, the sound of a crowd that has already decided what it wants next. Because today was a parade, but tomorrow the laughter will be joined by the roar, the stink of fur, the sound of claws raking the sand. Tomorrow comes the beast, and this time the crowd won't be laughing, they'll be waiting. The sun rises too bright for a day meant to humiliate you. Rufus wakes you at dawn with a kick. Today is the exhibition, the parade of meat. They hand you armor that looks like it was hammered together from tin pots and bad intentions. The helmet wobbles when you nod. The chest plate rattles when you breathe. The sandals pinch worse than usual. Even the belt seems confused about its purpose. You look less like a warrior and more like someone who lost a fight with the kitchen. Eel struts past, draped in his makeshift cape of stitched tunics, grinning as though he owns the place. Cassia adjusts her trident grip, already scowling at the thought of applause. Gaius pats your shoulder with his massive bean-farming hand, almost knocking you over. "Smile," he says. It makes the figs bounce off easier. You're not sure if he's joking. The gates creak open. Blinding sunlight spills across the sand. You shuffle forward, armor clanking like an embarrassed donkey, dragging tin cans. The crowd roars, not in awe, not in respect, but in amusement. A child in the front row launches a fig. It hits your helmet with a wet smack and slides down your faceplate. The nobles howl with laughter. You wave awkwardly, trying to look fierce. You are not. You look like a man waving for help at a family picnic. Cassia manages a proper glare, eyes flashing like steel. Eel flexes dramatically, blows kisses, and nearly trips over his cape. The crowd adores him. Gaius bows so deeply, he nearly topples into the sand. The crowd clap as if they've seen a comedy act. And then it's you again. You shuffle, your tin chest plate squealing with each step. A noble points and calls out, "Half a gladiator, half a bucket." Another shouts, "Shake him, maybe coins will fall out." You consider correcting them, but you're not sure they're wrong. By the end of the march, your arms ache from holding the shield. Your legs burn from the slow shuffle. Your jaw hurts from pretending you're brave. And your ears ring from laughter that isn't for you, but at you. Still, you're standing. And in the ludus, sometimes standing is the only victory. Back inside, Rufus eyes the group. "You survived the parade," he says flatly. "Don't get used to it." His gaze lingers on you a moment longer, as though he already knows the crowd has picked its favorite joke. That night, you lie in your cell staring at the ceiling. You replay the laughter, the figures, the jeers, the absurdity of being paraded like livestock. And yet, buried in the noise, you think you heard something else. Not just mockery, but hunger, expectation. The sound of a crowd that has already decided what it wants next. Because today was a parade, but tomorrow the laughter will be joined by the roar. The stink of fur, the sound of claws raking the sand. Tomorrow comes the beast, and this time the crowd won't be laughing, they'll be waiting. The first thing you hear is the roar. It rises from the pit like the earth itself is angry, low, hungry. A sound that doesn't belong to men, but to something older. Then comes the smell. Fur, blood, rot, and something sour, like old cabbage simmering in the sun. The stink clings to your throat until you can taste it. Rufus gathers you in the yard. "You've had your parade," he says. "Now comes the test." He points toward the pit. The wooden slats rattle as something slams against them from the inside. The ground itself seems to flinch. Whispers ripple through the recruits. A boar, a bear, a lion dragged all the way from Numidia. Someone swears they once saw a creature that was half wolf, half nightmare. No one knows for sure. No one wants to. You grip your practice stick tighter. It suddenly feels less like a weapon and more like the punchline to a very bad joke. A broom handle against whatever breathes in that pit. That night, the cells are restless. Cassia sharpens her trident until sparks leap in the dark. Gaius mutters about beans, though his voice trembles. Eel ties onions to his belt, for luck. He insists beasts hate onions. You don't argue. Maybe he's right. Maybe he'll die smelling like stew. When you finally lie down, you keep the stick beside you. You hug it like a child clinging to a toy. The cell reeks of sweat, bruises, and fear so thick you could chew it. Sleep, when it comes, is cruel. You dream of teeth, of claws raking sand, of the crowd chanting your name, not in cheer but in hunger. You dream of sand turning red, sticky under your sandals. You wake with a shout, drenched in sweat. The others don't mock you, they're having the same dreams. At dawn, Rufus tells you the matches will be next week, a reprieve, but also a countdown. 7 days to imagine what waits below. 7 nights to rehearse your own death. The beast already lives in your head. The days crawl. Training drills feel heavier. Even stew tastes metallic, like you can already taste blood. Laughter at the fire feels brittle, cracking under the weight of what's coming. And just when you think the fear can't get heavier, a guard brings you a scroll, sealed, tossed through the bars like it's nothing, from someone who claims to know you, your aunt, or a tax collector, or maybe both. You break the seal with trembling fingers. The words blur in the torchlight. It is supportive. It is passive-aggressive. It is somehow both at once. And as you read, your eyes sting. Not for the beast, but because someone, somewhere, still remembers your name. You clutch the parchment to your chest like a shield, and for one brief, foolish moment, you feel less alone. The scroll arrives at dusk, slipped through the bars by a guard who doesn't bother making eye contact. It lands in the straw with a soft thud, as though it's no more important than a beet peel. But to you, it might as well be gold. For a long moment, you just stare at it, afraid it isn't real, afraid it is, afraid that touching it will make it vanish, or worse, reveal it was meant for someone else. Finally, you reach down. Your hands shake so badly you fumble the seal twice before breaking it open. The wax cracks like brittle bone. The parchment smells faintly of dust and home. The handwriting is uneven. The words lean awkwardly across the page, as though whoever wrote them had second thoughts with every stroke. It could be your aunt. It could be a tax collector. It could even be both, wrapped into one neat passive-aggressive package. The letter reads, "We're proud of you. Though we never thought you'd amount to much, we hope you survive long enough to make this worth the effort. And don't embarrass us in front of the neighbors. You laugh once, a short, broken sound that scrapes your throat raw. Then your laugh twists into something else, a sob you don't mean to let out. Eel leans over from his side of the cell, squinting at the parchment. Is that love or hate? He asks. Both, you whisper. He nods seriously, as if that makes perfect sense, then sneezes into the straw and promptly falls asleep. The others notice too. Cassia pretends not to look, but her eyes flick toward the parchment and away again. Gaius mutters something about beans being a reminder of home, then clears his throat like he's said too much. Even Rufus, passing by with his torch, pauses at your bars. He doesn't sneer, doesn't grunt, just glances at the letter and keeps walking. You clutch the parchment to your chest like armor. It doesn't make the bruises fade. It doesn't erase the fear. But it does remind you that beyond these walls, your name still exists. Even if it's attached to disappointment. Even if it's whispered between neighbors with a sigh. It exists. You fall asleep holding it. Ink smears onto your fingers. Tears stain the edges. In the dark, it almost feels like a hand resting on your shoulder. At dawn, the horn blares. Rufus shouts for everyone to rise, and the letter feels suddenly lighter in your hands, as though it knows what today means. Today, you're chosen, not for drills, not for exhibition, for the arena, the real match, the drums, the sand, the sweat, and the mistake that could end you. The drums begin before sunrise, not the practice beats you've grown used to. These are heavier, slower, like the earth itself has decided to announce your doom. You sit up, the letter from home still tucked under your straw pallet. For a moment, you wonder if you dreamed it. Then you feel the smudges of ink on your fingers and know it was real. Real and useless against what waits today. Rufus appears in the doorway like a storm cloud in sandals. He throws a bundle at your chest. Gear, he says. Try not to embarrass me. Inside is a short sword with a mean glint, a shield that feels heavier than anything you've trained with, an armor that smells like it was peeled off someone who didn't survive to complain. The straps are stiff, the metal still sticky with old sweat. Eel grins at you as he adjusts his cape of ragged tunics. He presses a clove of garlic into your palm. For luck, he says, and to ward off fleas. You don't argue. You pocket it like treasure. Cassia ties a strip of leather around your wrist with steady fingers. Keep the blade close, she murmurs. Eyes first, feet second. Pride last. Feels like advice disguised as prayer. Gaius presses a dried bean into your other hand. It remembers the earth, he tells you. You don't know what that means, but you nod, because maybe believing in beings is all you've got left. In the gear room, attendants rush about with frantic energy. Helmets clink, greaves scrape. Someone vomits into a bucket, swearing it's a warm-up. Another hums to drown out his fear. Rufus thrusts a helmet at you, rounded, domed, the kind meant to deflect a net. Secutor, he says, Retarius today. Your stomach drops into your sandals, a net fighter, a trident, a weapon designed to humiliate as much as kill. You balance the helmet in your hands. It's heavier than it looks. You set it on a peg for one moment to tighten your greaves. Just one. The horn blares. Handlers shout. The line surges forward like cattle being herded to market. You grab your sword, your shield, your courage, but not your helmet. Halfway down the tunnel, you feel it. Breeze on your scalp, bare, exposed. You reach up, heart hammering, no helmet. You freeze, ready to sprint back, but the handlers shove you forward. Move, one snarls. The gate clanks open. The light of the arena pours in. There's no time, no second chance. The crowd notices instantly. A wave of laughter rolls across the amphitheater. Look, a bold one, someone shouts. Or a fool, another answers. The laughter sticks to your skin worse than the sweat. Across the sand, your opponent emerges. The Retarius, bareheaded, no shield, trident gleaming, net hanging loose like a spider's grin. He tilts his head when he sees you. Then he laughs too. It's not a friendly laugh. It's the laugh of a man already imagining victory. You lift your chin, pretending it's a choice, pretending bareheaded bravery is a tactic, not an accident. Your scalp feels huge, every hair a target. A priest lifts incense above the editor's box. Smoke curls into the sunlight. The gods are named. Mars, Fortuna. You silently beg both of them to look your way. Rufus stands at the edge of the tunnel, arms folded. He doesn't nod. He doesn't shake his head. He just watches, like he's already written the ending. The Retarius twirls his net lazily, testing, teasing. Your grip tightens. Cassia's voice echoes in your memory. Eyes before pride, feet before hands. The crowd leans forward. Vendors shout about honeyed almonds. Someone spills wine down the marble steps. Life goes on around you as if you're not about to die. The net flicks forward, whistling through the air. It spreads wide, gray threads shimmering in the sun. You duck, but not soon enough. The edge grazes your shoulder, yanks your shield sideways. It tears a line across your bare scalp. White-hot pain sears your head. Blood trickles down into your eye. The crowd gasps, half in horror, half in delight. You wrench free, stumble, and advance with a shout. It doesn't sound heroic. It sounds like someone stepped on your toe. But it's noise, and noise is better than silence. The retiarius bares his teeth, lunges with the trident. You parry. Somehow, metal sings. Sand sprays. The crowd roars louder now. Less laughter, more hunger. You can feel your heart in your teeth. The sun baking your bare skull like bread. The weight of thousands of eyes waiting to see if you fall. You tell yourself again, the missing helmet is a statement, a tactic, a genius move. Only you were bold enough to attempt. It is not. It's a mistake. The retiarius twirls his net for the throw that matters. His foot catches on the mesh. He stumbles. The crowd gasps again. The sound bending like a wave that doesn't know which way to crash. And suddenly, you see the opening. Not divine, not heroic, just stupid, simple luck. You lower your shoulder and move to take it. Not because you're brave, but because you forgot your helmet, and now you don't have a choice. The sand sticks to your blood. It cakes into the cut on your scalp, stings like salt rubbed into shame. You stagger, but you're still upright. Barely. Across from you, the retiarius curses, tugging at the net tangled around his own ankle. The crowd howls, part laughter, part fury, part hungry thrill. You almost pity him. Almost. Rufus's voice echoes in your head. Eyes before pride, feet before hands. So you lunge, not graceful, not practiced, just desperate. Your sword strikes the shaft of his trident. The clang rings up your arm like a bell tolling in your bones. He grunts, stumbles, drops the net completely. You drive your shield forward and hear the breath punch out of his chest. The crowd erupts, not in laughter this time, but in cheers, a sound that washes over you like heat, confusing and terrible, because for the first time, they are not laughing at you. They are calling for you. The retiarius tries to rise, wheezing, his trident dragging in the sand. You raise your sword without thinking. Your arms know what to do, even if your heart does not. And for a heartbeat, you feel it. Power, choice, the knife edge between life and death, balanced in your grip. A priest raises incense from the editor's box. He declares, Mars has smiled on you. You're not sure Mars had anything to do with it. It felt more like clumsiness and panic, stitched together with dumb luck. Still, the crowd believes. They chant your name, or maybe just helmet. You can't tell, but they chant it like you matter, and you find yourself smiling, the worst mistake of all. Rufus sees it. Even from across the sand, you feel his glare. He knows that smile, knows it means you enjoyed surviving. Nose, it means you felt the cheer of the crowd in your chest, and he knows that's dangerous. You lower your sword, step back, let the retiarius live. The editor signals approval with a flick of his hand. The crowd erupts again, some cheering your mercy, others booing the lack of blood. Either way, you walk off the sand alive. Back in the tunnel, your knees buckle. Eel is there, steadying you with one onion-stained hand. You didn't die, he whispers. You're officially interesting now. By the time you reach the cells, your body is a map of bruises and cuts, but you feel something strange under the pain. Not pride, not relief, something heavier. The weight of knowing the crowd cheered your name, and the shame of knowing you liked it. That night, as you lie awake, you trace the cut on your scalp with trembling fingers. You think of Mars, of Fortuna, of Rufus's scowl, and you realize something unsettling. The gods of sand and sweat may not be in the sky at all. They might be sitting in the stands, eating figs, deciding who gets to matter for another day. Tomorrow, the bruises will bloom darker. Tomorrow, the whispers in the ludus will shift, and you'll hear your name with the new edge. And tomorrow, for the first time, you will have to live with being noticed. The morning after the fight, you expect silence, mockery, maybe even scorn. Instead, you wake to whispers, your name, passed from cell to cell, like contraband. You see him, the one with no helmet. He should be dead. He's lucky, or cursed. By breakfast, the whispers have turned to stares. Eel slaps your back so hard you nearly fall into the bean pot. Look at you, he crows, yesterday's scribe. Today's almost legend. You mutter something about luck. He shushes you. Legends don't argue. Even Cassia, who rarely speaks, nods once in your direction. A gesture that feels like a handshake carved from stone. And Gaius, spooning beans with priest-like reverence, says, he walks with the crowd's voice now. You want to ask what that means, but Rufus appears and everyone goes silent. Later, in the yard, a group invites you to drink from a clay jug. The liquid inside smells like fermented socks and tastes worse. They cheer when you gag. Welcome, one says, wiping his mouth. Now you belong. By midday, you've earned something else, a nickname. Helmetless. Not heroic, not flattering, but it sticks. By evening, even Rufus mutters it under his breath. You don't just earn names here, you earn enemies. During stew, two men argue over boiled eggs. The fight escalates to knives, not the polished arena kind. Kitchen knives, dented and dull, but no less deadly. One slips, cutting a hand instead of an egg. Blood drips into the stew pot. Lucius, the medic cook undertaker, shrugs. Adds flavor, he says. The gossip is constant. Who's favored for the next match? Who bribed the guards for better sandals? Who's secretly training with live blades after curfew? Every rumor buzzes through the air like flies over stew. And now, for the first time, you're part of it. Not just a name on a roster, a story. That night, around the fire, you catch your reflection in the polished side of a shield. You hardly recognize yourself, bruised, thin, eyes sharper than the man who copied scrolls for a living. You hate that you look the part now. You hate more that some part of you doesn't hate it enough. The chatter around you swells. Plans, dreams, threats. Someone jokes about poisoning Rufus's wine. Someone else claims they saw Eel try to wrestle a goat for fun. The laughter is loud, too loud, almost desperate. And then the gate creaks open. Rufus enters, silent. His eyes sweep the circle. Everyone stiffens. He doesn't speak, doesn't need to. His stare says it all. The crowd may cheer today, but tomorrow someone else will bleed. You lie awake that night, staring at the ceiling, listening to Eel snore in 3 different languages. You wonder how long this fragile acceptance will last. You wonder if friendship here is real or just another survival tactic. And you wonder how much longer you can balance between scribe and gladiator before the scales tip for good. The answer comes sooner than you think, because freedom whispers from the cracks in the wall, a loose gate, a chance, and a mistake waiting to happen. It begins with a creak, a small sound, so ordinary it almost doesn't register, until you notice it again and again. The gate at the far end of the yard, unlocked. You stare at it through drills, sweat dripping into your eyes. Through dinner, beans sticking to your teeth. Through Rufus's nightly threats about discipline and dying properly. The gate keeps calling, like a whisper no one else can hear. One evening, when the guards are distracted arguing about dice, you test it. Your fingers curl around the iron bars. They're warm from the day's sun, rough against your skin. You pull, it moves, easier than it should. Your heart punches against your ribs, your pulse roars in your ears. 4 steps, that's all it would take. 4 steps to be outside. Eel notices you staring. He sidles up, onion smell leading the way. You thinking what I think you're thinking? He whispers. I'm thinking you're an idiot. Then he grins, missing tooth and all. Go on. Let's see if fast feet can fly. You don't remember deciding. 1 second you're in the yard, the next you're outside the gate. The air smells different, open, alive, the kind of air that doesn't taste like sweat and despair. You take one step, 2, 3. Freedom is a heartbeat away. 4. Then you remember the guards, the spears, the walls, the stories of what happened to the last man who tried. They painted him on the mess hall wall. It wasn't a flattering portrait. Your legs freeze, your throat closes, and in that frozen moment, you realize you are not fast enough, not strong enough, not ready. You step back through the gate, you close it behind you. The creak is louder now, mocking, like the gate itself is laughing. Rufus is waiting, of course he is, leaning against the wall with his arms folded. His mouth curls into something between a smirk and a scar. Fast feet, he says. The new nickname lands heavier than any bruise. No one speaks of it afterward, not Cassia, not Gaius, not even Eel. But you hear the whispers in the dark, you feel the stares, and you know the price of almost freedom. That night, you lie awake, the sound of the creaking gate still in your head. Your body aches from drills, but your chest aches worse from something harder to name. Hope, maybe, or shame, or both. Sleep takes you late, and when it does, you dream not of beasts or battles, but of gates, wide open, and of friends who might not survive long enough to walk through them. It happens sooner than you're ready for. Not your fight, someone else's, someone you care about. The horn blares at dawn, deeper than usual, echoing down the stone halls. Names are read. One of them is familiar. Too familiar. Not yours, but close enough to make your chest clench. Cassia, the trident fighter, the one who hides softness under scars and silence, the one who tied leather around your wrist like it mattered, the one who once whispered about missing her dog. She is chosen. You step forward, blurting before you think. Take me instead. The guard doesn't even glance at you. The list is written. The crowd is waiting. You try again, louder. I'll fight. Rufus turns his head slowly, the way a mountain might turn if it ever noticed an ant. Sit down, he says. His tone isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. The weight of it presses you back into the shadows. Cassia doesn't flinch. She doesn't look at you, just picks up her trident, checks the straps on her greaves, and walks toward the tunnel. Like this was always the path she expected, like she already said goodbye. You trail after, at least as far as the gate. The handlers block your way, spears crossed. Through the bars, you glimpse her figure in the half-light of the tunnel. Tall, straight-backed, a warrior who doesn't need your pity, but who still carries your worry in silence. The arena bellows when she steps into the sand. The crowd chants something you can't make out. Your own pulse drowns it. Your throat is dry enough to crack. The opponent is announced, a Mamillo, broad-shielded, sword gleaming, a walking wall of iron, the kind of fighter meant to crush rather than dazzle. The match begins with a roar. Cassia darts left, trident flashing. The Mamilio's shield slams forward, a thunderclap of wood and metal. Dust plumes. Your fingers curl so tight around the bars of the gate that your knuckles bleed. She fights beautifully, like the sea in a storm, fast, unpredictable, impossible to pin down. The trident snaps and jabs, catching the Mamilio's shoulder once, then again. The crowd gasps, cheers, stomps their sandals. You almost believe she might win. Then his sword comes down, a single arc, brutal, final. The sound cuts through the arena louder than the cheers. You want to look away, but you don't. You force yourself to watch as the dust settles, as the priest steps forward, as the editor raises his hand. The crowd decides with a roar that drowns out your heartbeat. Thumb down. You don't remember the rest. Just the sand turning darker where she fell. Just the way silence spread among the recruits when they carried her body past. Just the way Eel stopped humming for once. Even he didn't have words. That night, the cell block is heavy. No jokes, no bean talk, no ghost stories, only the weight of absence. You lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment you didn't change, every step you didn't take, every plea Rufus ignored. And in that silence, you taste something you've never truly swallowed before. Helplessness. It sits heavier than any stew, bitterer than any defeat. A bruise no medic's beat paste can ever cover. The next morning, Rufus walks the cells. He doesn't mention her, doesn't need to. The gap in the line is reminder enough. His eyes pass over you once, sharp as the edge of a blade. Next, he says, and you know the lessons aren't over. Because the final one is waiting, the one no bruise or blade can prepare you for. What being a gladiator has actually taught you. You're still alive, and you don't know why. Not because you're the strongest, not because you're the fastest, certainly not because you're the bravest. You're alive because chance tripped your enemy, because the gods were distracted, because Rufus didn't call your name this morning. The bruise map on your body has turned into a masterpiece of purple, yellow, and black. Your shoulder feels like it's made of gravel. Your knees crack like old doors, but you're breathing. And in the ludus, breath is wealth. At first, you thought being a gladiator was about fighting, about blood, about steel, about who could raise their blade higher. But the longer you survive, the clearer it becomes. The fight was never the point. It was about being seen by the crowd when they laughed at your parade, seen by Rufus when he called you helmetless with something like respect. Seen by Cassia in the latrines, whispering about her dog. Seen by Eel when he shared his last olive, pit and all. Seen by Gaius when he handed you a bean and called it memory. That visibility cuts both ways. It lifts you for a heartbeat when the crowd chants your name, and it crushes you when you watch a friend fall and realize the only thing anyone remembers is how entertaining it looked. You think about the scrolls you once copied, endless lines of ink, neat and careful, preserving other people's words. Now, your story is written in scars, in bruises, in whispers that pass between the barracks. You are no longer a scribe of parchment. You are a scribe of flesh. And the record you keep isn't tidy. It's a record of bruises shaped like apricots, of beans that tasted like home, of stew that tasted like despair, of gates that almost opened, of names shouted in an arena, half in mockery, half in awe. You hate it, and yet some part of you clings to it because it means you mattered even for a moment, because it means you weren't invisible. So what did being a gladiator teach you? Not how to fight, not how to kill, not even how to live. It taught you how to endure, how to be noticed, how to hold on to the smallest fragments of kindness in a place built on cruelty. Cassia's silence, Eel's grin, Gaius's beans, even Rufus's grudging nods. These became your armor more than any shield. And in the end you realize you're not just a body in sand. You're not just meat in a parade. You're the sum of every bruise, every stolen fig, every laugh shared under torchlight when no one was looking. The gods of sand and sweat didn't make you strong. They didn't make you brave. They made you seen. And somehow, against every expectation, that was enough. Even if tomorrow the gates open again, even if tomorrow the crowd decides differently, even if tomorrow the sand takes your name for the last time, today you are still here and you are still someone. Street food of ancient Rome, what did they really eat? Congratulations, you've just wandered into a Roman street market. You're not sure how or why, but it smells like onions, regret, and goat cheese that hasn't made up its mind yet. Somewhere nearby, a woman is yelling about garum. Someone else is trying to sell you a fig, already bitten into, and calling it pre-tested. You haven't even had breakfast, but here you are, in the belly of the beast. Rome's street food scene, the loudest, oiliest, most delicious corner of the empire. There are no restaurants, not the kind you're used to. Instead, Rome has thermopolia, fast food stalls with big terracotta jars sunken into stone counters. Steam drifts up from the holes like tiny edible volcanoes. One holds boiled lentils, another something that looks like stew but smells like ambition. and anchovy paste. You step aside as a slave boy races past with a basket of flatbread, still warm, wrapped in linen. The baker behind him shouts something about paying next time. The boy doesn't respond. You suspect there won't be a next time. A man with olives in his beard gestures to you. He stands behind a tray of skewered dormice, charred, crispy, drizzled in honey and poppy seeds. He calls them a delicacy. You call them ambitious raisins. This is street food in Rome. Fast, salty, surprisingly fermented, and absolutely everywhere. Across from you, a thermopolium cook in a soot-streaked apron ladles out chickpea porridge. He scoops it into a shallow wooden bowl, plops a boiled egg on top, finishes with a sprinkle of pepper, so generous it makes the man behind you sneeze. Luxury, the cook says, wiping his hands on his toga. The pepper, not the sneeze. Everywhere you look, someone's eating standing up. A young man balances a fig pastry on his knee while fixing his sandal. Two elderly women share a baked cheese loaf, talking politics. A group of legionaries chew salted pork and argue about who smells the worst. You pass a cart selling roasted chickpeas wrapped in parchment. It smells incredible. You ask how much. The vendor shrugs. For you, 2 sesterces and a compliment. You pay 3. You're bad at compliments. Just past the forum, a boy with a wooden sign yells about garum, Rome's most famous and notorious condiment. Fermented fish sauce. They put it on everything. Eggs, bread, dates, even fruit. It's the ketchup of ancient Rome. If ketchup were made by leaving sardines in a jar for 6 months and forgetting them on a windowsill. You try a sample. It tastes bold, like a dare wrapped in a bribe. A dog walks by with a sausage in its mouth. No one stops it. They just nod approvingly. Good taste, excellent snatch. You pause by a woman selling libum, sweet cheese bread wrapped in fig leaves. She waves you over with a smile. The bread is warm, soft, drizzled in honey. You buy one, then another, and another. This is a mistake you do not regret. Next, stall over. A man grills squid on iron skewers over a fire pit. He fans the flames with a broken wax tablet. The squid sizzles. The air smells like lemon and seaweed and someone burning their thumb. There are no menus here, no prices listed, just smells and gestures, and whatever's bubbling in the jar next to the olives. You pass a honey cake seller wearing a crooked laurel wreath. He's asleep. You take a cake and leave a coin. The cake is soft, spongy, filled with nuts, the best kind of honesty tax. Someone bumps into you carrying a bowl of boiled lentils. It spills slightly, hits your sandal. You both apologize at the same time, then laugh, then both slip on the lentils and pretend you didn't. You're starting to understand how Rome functions. It's chaos, flavored and fried. A senator walks by, silk-trimmed toga, gold ring, expression of vague superiority. He's holding a meatball. Grease drips onto his sandal. Even the upper class eats street food. They just do it with more jewelry. You find a quiet bench. Sit down. Unwrap your bundle. A meat-stuffed pastry, a fig, and something unidentifiable that smells like ambition and goat. You chew slowly. The bread is dense. The meat is spiced. You still don't know what the third thing is. You don't care. Somewhere nearby, a man is singing, badly, but with heart. Two kids run by, chasing each other with hollowed-out reed flutes. A dog barks. Someone drops a clay cup and pretends it wasn't theirs. It's loud, it's warm, it's alive, and it's delicious. You lean back, stomach full, face sticky, heart strangely peaceful. You close your eyes. The sounds of Rome drift around you like a lullaby made of footsteps, laughter, fire and fennel. Tomorrow, you'll try the honey-roasted grasshoppers, but tonight, you sleep with the taste of sweet cheese bread on your tongue. Dinner at a domus inside a Roman family's kitchen. It's evening in the city of Rome. The streets outside are still noisy with vendors and carts, but inside a wealthy home, a domus, the mood is calmer. The walls are painted with bright frescoes. The floors glitter with mosaic, and the smell of food drifts from the kitchen. The kitchen is small compared to the house. Dark, smoky. The hearth glows red with charcoal. Slaves move quickly, stirring pots, grinding spices, chopping herbs. Their hands are fast, practiced, efficient. Dinner is being prepared. Not just one dish, but many. Bread baked fresh from the oven. Olives and cheese served in small bowls. A stew of lentils simmering with onions and carrots. And on the spit, roasted pork turning slowly over the coals. The flavors are bold. Romans love spice. Cumin, coriander, pepper brought from India, and always garum, the salty fish sauce poured into almost everything. To Roman taste buds, nothing is complete without it. In the triclinium, the dining room, couches are arranged around a low table. The family reclines as they eat, propped on cushions. Children sit upright on stools. Guests are placed carefully according to status. The closer you sit to the host, the more important you are. The meal begins with gustazio, the starters, boiled eggs sprinkled with pepper, fresh fruit, honeyed wine. Then come the main dishes, roast meats, stews thick with beans and herbs, platters of fish dressed with olive oil and leeks. Conversation flows with the food. Politics, business, News from the forum. Servants move in and out, carrying dishes, refilling cups, clearing scraps. Nothing is wasted. Even bones are boiled later for broth. Finally comes dessert, second day mense. Not cake or chocolate, but sweet fruit. Figures. Dates stuffed with nuts, pears drizzled with honey. Simple, but rich with flavor. The family lingers after the meal. The lamps are lit. The children doze. The adults sip watered wine, talking into the evening. The air is heavy with smoke, spice, and laughter. This is dinner at a domus, a glimpse inside a Roman family's kitchen. Not the grand banquets of emperors, not the cheap snacks of the streets, but the daily rhythm of home. Here, food is more than fuel. It is family. It is tradition. It is Rome itself, savored one dish at a time. Public baths and private gossip. An afternoon at the Thermae. It's late afternoon in Rome. The streets are hot, dusty. Your tunic clings to your back. You need relief, and like thousands of Romans, you find it at the baths. The Thermae are more than just a place to wash. They are the social heart of the city. Everyone comes here, rich, poor, freedman, slave. Entry is cheap, sometimes even free, if a politician is feeling generous before an election. You step inside the massive complex. The ceilings rise high, painted with frescoes of dolphins and gods. Marble floors echo under your sandals. The air hums with voices, laughter, and the splash of water. First, you visit the apoditerium, the changing room. You leave your clothes in a niche. An attendant watches over them. Though everyone knows theft is common here, you keep your eye on the man with too many rings. Next comes the palestra, the exercise yard. Men are wrestling in the sand. Others practice with weights. Some toss a heavy ball back and forth, grunting with effort. You stretch, but only a little. You're here for the baths, not to join the Olympic team. You start with the tepidarium, the warm room. The air is thick, moist. Sweat beads on your forehead instantly. Mosaics of sea creatures swim across the floor. A slave pours scented oil into your hands. You rub it across your skin. Then comes the caldarium, the hot room. The steam hits you like a wall. Your lungs tighten. You sink into the pool, the water nearly boiling. Men gossip loudly across the room. Politics, business, affairs. No secret in Rome stays secret for long. You listen. One man complains about grain shortages. Another brags about a mistress. A senator mutters about corruption while being massaged with olive oil. Everyone pretends not to hear him. Everyone does. From the caldarium, you cool down in the frigidarium. The cold plunge. The shock makes you gasp. Your skin tightens, your heart pounds. But when you climb out, you feel reborn. Finally, you return to the tepidarium. You sit on a bench, wrapped in a towel, sipping watered wine. Your muscles hum with exhaustion. Your mind buzzes with the gossip you've overheard. This is Rome's true forum, not in the marble square, but here, in the steam. As the sun sets outside, the baths grow louder. Children splash, old men argue, friends laugh. The thermae are alive, a city within the city. When you leave, your skin is soft. Your hair smells of oil. Your ears are full of secrets you didn't ask to hear. And you understand why the Romans say, the baths, wine, and Venus, these keep life sweet.